okay, honey.
Pretty cool sitting here.
Yes, it is.
Who would have thought, right? Why are we talking today? Well, I wanted to introduce you to the world and share your story as being client one of our,
That's right.
I don't want to say of our system or our methodology, but like, yeah, and you, I think, are much more of a testament to the method and the way we live and eat and how we do things more than I am. A lot of times people see me and what I'm doing physically or athletically or otherwise mentally, and they think, wow, it's really cool. But like, I think it's a lot cooler that they see you and hear from you. So it's not just for me and not just about me, but to hear it from really where I get it from, and to hear your experience. You're having been a nurse, having taught nursing, having a medical background, and having grown up in different cultures, different countries, coming from a different country, having a lot more experience and change of your life now into this new way of living, and how you found longevity and see promise and future. And I just want, to kind of share that with all these other people.
Oh, thank you. Wow, what an honor, honey. I mean, this is a real privilege to be with you like this.
You really dressed up with your pajama
Oh,
pants.
thank you.
For us,
I'm
right?
at home. Yeah, no. My life is our life, right? And so I'm just honored that we go full circle. I remember when you were a little boy, and I would try to force feed you certain things and trick you into it. And, we tried to live the best life we knew how to live back then. And here we are now. So as far as who embodies you the most, it is you who embodies you the most. I'm simply honored to have been part of who you are today.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, and I do pray for your clients, past, present, and future, and all the lives that you touch, and then all the people who work with you. And that God blesses you continually with great spirits like that, with the momentum that you have. It's really good. It's service, and it's a great service to mankind.
I'm glad you see it that way.
So that's a good way of avoiding the answer, like, what do you want me to talk about?
I like talking about your pants.
Thank you.
It's very Dennis Rodman.
It's a tribute to Dennis Rodman. I like him a lot.
Why?
Because he emphasized something that's very important related to hard work and stress and running every day and being on adrenaline 24/7. You have to take time off. You have to remove yourself. Otherwise, you are just so consumed, so exhausted that you can no longer give anything, and the body will just break down. I mean, I've always said to you that we are who we are based on what we bring from the outside in, but we are also who we are from what we are from the inside out. So when I look at you and you look at me, we see this external body. What represents us, though, is what's going on inside. And there are so many internal programs running like machines at all times together. Not just the mind, but the spirit as well. And then the physicality of it on the inside. A long time ago, before you were born, when I first took anatomy and physiology in college, I was in awe to learn about the cell. And most people were like, oh, I don't want to be in this class anymore. But for me, it was this one sentence: the cell is the smallest living unit of structure and function. So the cell, trillions of them in our bodies, each little one of them will absorb whatever we give it, right? Will digest it, will metabolize it, and will excrete it. That's what we do. Conversely, the body is the largest unit of structure and function that we know. And for it to operate as it does so precisely, without us forcing it to happen, in itself is an amazing miracle. Every single day, every single hour. To wake up one day and breathe without you even thinking about it. To go to sleep at night and not think about, okay, everyone, we're shutting down, and you go through all the internal systems. And what are we doing? It's like you said earlier a few weeks ago to someone, it's what we put in our mouths. That's the barrier. And I go back to the cell. The cell has a semi-porous membrane, little surrounding. It will allow certain things in, block certain things out, and excrete certain things. The mouth is our membrane. Of course, the mind is the membrane and the spirit, but the mouth, what we put into our bodies. So I'm glad you're doing what you're doing, because it helps me to reinforce to myself, that I need to do what I'm doing. Because like I said when we first started, my life is our life.
Yeah, God, it's so funny. I love talking about the cellular level too, with people, and saying like how what we see on the outside is, if it was a conveyor belt, right? The cellular level is phase 0, and how we look and who we are, what the exterior shows, is like the end of the conveyor belt. So like when people look at like really healthy people, like your Ronaldos and Serena Williamses and The Rocks and, you know, Tom Brady's, and they're like, wow, these people, it's like, yeah, but you know how clean they are internally at phase 0 to look like that on the outside, and then to think, wow, this guy eats like this or she does that, they're crazy. Are they crazy though? Or are they the result of their habits, their lifestyle choices, and the things they don't do, the things they don't eat, the people they don't hang out with, the places they don't go? So is it really an addition, or is it the lack thereof all these other impurities that are keeping them that way? And I think it's much more of that. It's where I say detoxification is more important than nutrition. Nutrition is important, of course, but I think the removal of or lack thereof impurity is far greater of a priority than it is actually the consumption of something. What do you think?
Well, let me go back to the rich and famous people you just mentioned. So the opposite is people who don't have that much money, who are not famous, but they are in my life. You know, people I grew up with in Mexico who didn't have what I had, but they were happy and healthy based on what they ate and how they lived. People with discipline. And to me, that's the major theme among that group, Tom Brady and that group, self-discipline. But it also comes to awareness and knowledge, right? So the more you learn, the more you grow. And the more you grow, the more you become. And then we grow up to be who we are, and then we go back to being who we were born to be. And so what I think it's nutrition, and it is cleansing, detoxifying. But if you didn't have to detox so much, can you imagine how amazingly functional you would be? So, you know, you like cars, and you can relate to that. If you keep the car clean on the inside internally and on the outside exterior, inside like the floor mats and things like that, you wouldn't have to be cleaning it so frequently. But I want to go back to what you said earlier. You see, it's not just that they know about their bodies, it's that they truly feel it. You emotionally engage with something, you fall in love with it, and you pursue it. And there's no one greater to love truly than yourself first. After that, then you can love someone else. And so, you know, the old adage about if you're on the airplane and the oxygen mask drops, do you give it to your child first, or do you put it on yourself? As a mom, I always said, I'm going to put it on Jacob first. And then I learned, no, because then I will pass out from lack of oxygen, right? Same thing with our bodies. So what happened that we made this shift? Thank God that we cannot see at the cellular level. I would be petrified. I think I would just be so scared all the time of everything. Because if you study food the way it is now, and I know you've gone through the grocery store, and a lot of people are walking through the grocery store now with a different set of eyes. But if you could only really see what's inside that bag that's been sitting on that shelf. Are you familiar with the dollar store?
Sure.
Okay, so I was at a dollar store in a teeny little town in Texas, and I pointed to something on the shelf, and the clerk, a young man, said to me, "Ma'am, that's junk." So see, he's not rich and famous. He's young, and he doesn't have the money, the wealth, the resources that other people have, but he knows. And he uses his own knowledge and awareness and discipline to not touch it. So what have we done? Where did the shift begin? How did it get us, and where are we now? It is just so strong. It's a stronghold on all of us. It's a chokehold. The choices are very limited. In Mexico, in the poorer communities, and I know because I've been there, I've lived there. So 15, 20 years ago, and Coca-Cola will love me for saying this, but it's true, the number one beverage in Mexico was Coca-Cola. And it was greater than milk and greater than orange juice. Why? Because it's easily available, easily stored, and a lot cheaper. So growing up, I saw mothers giving babies Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
That's all they had. And we begin with that process. At the same time, I saw people grinding corn by hand. I saw people picking things from the fields that were not fertilized. I saw fruit growing from trees that does not look like the fruit we have today. My own mother, who grew up herself on a ranch, her job was back then, and she was born in 1917. She used to tell us, my job was to feed corn to the hogs. So don't eat corn. I'm not giving you corn. And she was, by that time, a young girl, so this is 20s and 30s. They already knew about genetics and modification of genes. My father was a crop duster, and he dusted crops in Mexico all along Sonora and into Sinaloa and all along the Pacific side. He mixed his own chemicals, all carcinogens. He knew what they did and how they modified fruit and vegetables. And the ability of a pesticide to kill a tiny organism like the caterpillar that we can see, and then beyond that, the tiny little things that you cannot see, to kill that, yet the plant or the fruit continues to grow in spite of it.
Right.
And then we ingest it, right?
Remember we were talking about earlier, guys, with the gluten and wheat, and the difference between the GMO version versus the French and Italian. Like we were talking about why grains, American grains, for example, are dangerous, because naturally growing they look like this, but the Americanized version is like that, to where they're so different. They're unrecognizably different. Visually they look the same. They create the same product of pasta or this or that, whatever, pizza, wheat, dough. But internally the body doesn't recognize this one. It recognizes this one because it knows it's a naturally growing element, a natural crop. But this one has been so strained and stressed and malleable to be used more diversely for other products, that the chemical withstandings it's gone through, like you were talking about with the carcinogens and the defense mechanisms that it's been able to hold off all these other things, like that's no longer the same as this. So when the body receives that, it's a lot of shock. And how? Because it's never been geared to receive that. It's been geared to receive this. But all of that is not natural.
Well, it's a lot easier to, I don't grow corn, and I don't want to misrepresent the corn growers of anywhere.
Yeah, me neither.
But it's a lot easier to look at corn, and it's all the same height, the same dimension, so you can easily pick it, right? It's a lot easier to process it. I do have a little mouse that gets into my car. I don't know how it does it. I don't know if it's male or female, a little mouse. and leaves me kernels of corn inside the car. And the irony of it is, I tell him thank you, because I get to look at the kernels of corn. They're all the same. I'm like, where did you get it that they're all uniform? And this is deer corn, by the way, that we feed deer. So I am part of that group that is feeding deer artificially. And it's corn that's probably rejected from other things and raised a certain way, grown a certain way. And so I'm feeding that cycle, just like many of us were involved with cattle when cattle were given hormonal shots and things like that. We really just didn't know better. And then people did know, but they still have to do it. Yeah.
When you talked about like feeling, we were talking earlier with the guys visiting right now and talking about like, I can't touch you with my hand and let you feel how I feel inside. Yeah, I can't do it yet. Maybe one day we'll figure it out. But like, hey man, like what does it feel like to feel the way you do? Or like, what does it feel like to wake up like that and have energy and not be depressed and be, able to withstand addiction and temptation, da da da. It's like, it's gotta have so much discipline. Like if I could touch you and you could feel it, you would understand. Why? Because hearing it from somebody is one thing. Seeing it in front of you is another thing. But feeling is the true understanding.
Yeah, so it's like anything. If you really feel it, like you really feel it, you really want it, you get it.
It's undeniable. Like today, like the guys visiting and, we're working out, we're eating these foods, we're subscribing to these messages or things we're listening to or things we're reading places we're going to, whether it's saunas and cold plunges, you cannot have those experiences, those visceral experiences, without actually experiencing them, those things. And then once you feel that, it becomes undeniable, because your preconceived assumption of what it's going to be like might have been one thing, or you thought we were going to go somewhere else, but now you're like, I feel it. And
well, there are several things with that. One is, God, if you were to touch me and I could feel it, it's like you're Jesus, right? One day we may get to the point where we are so developed that we are that way.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is that, thank God, that we are all still reacting to food, that we are still physiologically and viscerally aware of the effects of food on us. Because one day we may get to that point, which is the opposite of what I just said about feeling, where you can tell that someone is relaying something to you emotionally and mentally. But what if you get to that point where you're just so numb that you don't even know anymore that it's poison, and you become the poison? So the other thing too about what you're saying is, when you feel it, like you guys were in the cold plunge, right? You were in the dry sauna. That's one of the joys of reading. If you grew up with books, and if you didn't, it's never too late to start reading again, because you can travel the world, you can go through all sorts of adventures, you can go through personal issues that people have had, problems that they've solved.
The secrets of the world are hidden in books.
All the time. The more you read forever and ever, and your mind just expands. So you can be a very intuitive person, or a very sensitive person, and pick up people. All of us pick up vibes, we all pick up energy. But we're not there yet where we can say, oh, I feel you.
Right.
The real experience, a cold plunge, is different for everyone, because we all respond differently. You know, again, you had an experience here at a spa. There are people in Mexico who do cold plunge every day. That's all they have. And it's a little creek or just a little tub of filthy, dirty water, but that's what's there every morning. The fact is that you are feeling, they are feeling. And when we go through experiences, when we do all three, right, we think it, we feel it, wow. And then we really feel it internally, emotionally. It stays with us forever. That's why I've always said to you when you were little, no matter what happens later in life, nobody and nothing will ever take away this beautiful feeling that you know you were loved. You see a child who is loved like Gigi by her parents, Alec and Rebecca. No matter what happens to Gigi, yes. Later on in life, when she's a teenager, whatever, that will always stay with her, that memory. We have muscle memory, cellular memory, we have heart memory, emotions and feelings.
So for memory, when I was first going to start on this carnivore journey 3 years ago now, and I said, I'm just going to eat animals and animal byproducts. I'm not going to drink coffee. I'm not going to eat any vegetables or fruits. What did you think?
Well, wow, I thought a lot of things. I thought, yippee, wow, this is great at first. And then I thought, which fruits, right? My mind just starts racing. Knowing what I know about some fruits are not compatible with other fruits.
No, I'm saying like when I was
when you first started, my mind is, I'm like, analyze through from A to Z. What's he going to do? But then at first it was a novel idea. It was new. However, non-surprising to me at all that you would do something healthy like that. You were already a healthy person. You had become, number 3 in the world in natural bodybuilding. Natural bodybuilding, meaning nothing is added to your body externally. Nothing. You can't take any kind of stimulus that will help you grow in any way.
Yeah.
I love it.
Me too.
I go back to that sheer discipline and the want of it, the desire for it. So when you started it, great. I was a little bit hesitant in regards to meat only because I didn't know enough.
Yeah.
I thought, well, what about energy? How's he going to cope with this? And now that I know the truth behind it and the science behind it, I understand it. So many people today are talking about ketosis, and they're talking about fasting, and they're talking about certain diets and cutting out carbs, and which is the entrance, it's walking into this huge arena of knowledge and health. And so far, since this journey started for you, I've seen you just explode with energy. Not knowing that that would even be possible because you were always energetic and healthy. And then it was like, yeah, there it is.
Yeah, I don't think you could have to convince anybody is Jake energetic as a kid or anything like that. Is he an introvert or extrovert? Well, what about when, at what point did you see the need or like feel called to undertake it yourself, and why?
So for me, when I was 35, Alec was born.
It's my younger brother.
And I remember at that time, this was in the 80s, where I lived, people were still very conservative, and they looked down upon older women who were having babies later in life, right? And the thought back then was that there would be something genetically wrong with the offspring. And when Alec was born, I remember telling him in my arms, Alec, I will always be healthy for you. So 35 years from today, I'm going to remind you of this moment. Even though you don't know I'm talking to you, my little baby, but I'm going to remind you of this moment. So when Alec...
He'll be 35 this year.
Yeah. So for me, it was... No, he'll be 36. He's 35. When he... For me, it was like, I am going to make a promise and keep my promise with my feeling. See, it was a commitment with all my heart and soul. It was my feeling. It was also my conviction. I grew up healthy. I wanted to stay healthy. Did I deviate and do all the wrong things? Yes, I did. I grew up with McDonald's and Burger King when they were brand new. Kentucky Fried Chicken. I need to just name everybody because then I may get in trouble for not naming. Church's Fried Chicken, that was a big one.
Popeyes for sure.
Yeah. So, all those things came out. But then for me, when I was, I guess it must be 5 years ago that I moved to where I live now in Texas, and I went for my medical exam because I was kicked out by my insurance company because I'm 65 now, and they said you have to have Medicare.
65 at the time.
Yes, I was 65 at the time. You have to have Medicare. So Medicare, what's that? That's for old people. And she said, well, you have to go get Medicare. We can no longer cover you. I said, okay. I got Medicare, and they asked me, who is your doctor? And I said, I have a doctor? Well, you need to pick one. They sent me a list of doctors' names.
So this is the ageism kind of coming quick.
Yes, exactly. I said, I have no doctor. But I was going to a gym in Kerrville, and next door to that gym was a doctor's office. So I walked over there and, hi. And I met him. Very nice young man, very intelligent, progressive, understanding, respectful of me, beautiful. My attitude, though, at the time was, hi, and this is what I said to him, I'm here to see you. I don't want you to be my doctor. I'm just here because I need this form filled out, so don't get your hopes up high. And he said, oh, don't you worry about a thing. We'll find something wrong with you. You see that attitude?
Yeah.
So I said, no, you won't. He said, well, let's take a look. I said, sure, go on ahead. So I spent most of the day there in the office, and everything came back positive, normal. And he kept saying, well, there's nothing wrong. I can't find anything wrong. And I'm like, yes, I told you. Here, sign my paper, let me go. Well, how about we do one more little test? I said, sure, what's that? Bone density. I said, oh, good. Have you ever had one? No. Great, let's do it. It's a little machine, and they scan parts of your body. And there's a person back here taking all the stats, and it's on a computer screen, and then she reports that to him. And so he sat down with me, and he's looking at his laptop, and it's all there. And suddenly, his attitude changed, and he was very disappointed and just sad. And then turned to me and he said, these are the worst numbers I've ever seen in my entire practice. And your bones are like glass, and you will break any minute now. I'm not quoting him directly, but those were the words he used. Okay. And you have a year to live. So I panicked, when he said that, everything just shut down, and I couldn't.
A year to live?
That's what he said, and I couldn't think or see anything anymore after he said that. And then we worked it out, that I was able to come back, and then of course I was scared to death, literally, and I left the office shaking and crying. So I was really depressed for a few days. Then then I met this beautiful lady at the gym, beautiful lady. She didn't tell me who she was. She just comforted me and then said, well, And I wanted to get an adjustment. I just wanted to get somebody to touch me and adjust my body, and then I could start over. So she told me about this practice, and I went like the following week. And I saw her in the hallway, and I said, oh, isn't that the lady I met at the gym? Turns out she and her husband are both chiropractors.
Nice.
So she literally saved my life because she took me in, and that broke. You see, what happens too is you get into the momentum of negativity or positivity. If you can break the momentum, you just kind of shift, throw something into that, it breaks the momentum. Depending on how far you are into it, you can still get out of it. But if you're way in there, it's an abyss.
Yeah.
Okay, with anything in life. So from there, I went to train, and I met Nelson Thomas, my trainer. I told him my story, and he said, well, that's not going to happen to you. I said, that's right, it's not. And we started training. And then I went back to the doctor a few months later for a follow-up. And he's a big guy. And, I actually stood up to him and I said, don't you ever talk to me like that again. And he was sincere. He said, well, I really mean it. Because I said, no, I don't want to hear that. We're here to help me, okay? And it's not going to happen. So this is 5 years ago, and we're doing really well. I don't know what my most recent test is because that's been a year and a half. I'll probably be going in soon. But all my labs, everything else in my body is great. I've been working out and eating right. And it's not that I was eating wrong, but once I realized, math is not an easy subject for everyone, but for most of us, easy math is easy. I mean, if you look at the input from the food you ingest and then the output in terms of energy and positive, good energy, I knew right away the foods that give me energy and the foods that take away energy. I was already on that road.
Like what examples?
Well, for example, eating donuts and cookies, that steals energy from me immediately. Drinking champagne or wine,
Yeah.
it robs me of energy immediately. Headaches, rash, you name it, it's there. But then when I was focusing more on meat, clean meat, and not mixing it with carbohydrates or vegetables.
I remember that when you're talking about
Right?
like, hey, I had this steak the other day and it really knocked me out. I was like, what'd you eat it with?
You asked me, what did you eat it with? Oh, well, okay, I had potatoes and butter, and I had cheese, and I went on and on.
Spinach or something like
Yeah,
that.
so it wasn't the steak, it was everything else, and the bread, and yeah. Well, I stopped doing that. So once it clicked, the energy clicked. I thought, okay, well, here it is. Math is easy for us when it is easy. And
Simple.
very simple, yeah. So that's how it started, but the mission was for me to stay up with you. I am your mother, and I don't want to misrepresent you. I remember when you signed up for the Marine Corps, I went to the Marine Corps recruiting office where I lived, even though he had nothing to do with it. But he was 6'3", big guy in his uniform. And I went up to him and thumped on his chest. You, with your videos and your propaganda, and you promise them that they will fall out of helicopters.
I mean, or fight dragons on the chessboard. That's my favorite commercial.
Well, there you go. And so he took my hand very gently and said, maybe this will help you. He gave me a calendar of what you would be doing every day.
Yeah.
I said, okay, yeah, this helps me. I said, push-ups. Okay, I'm going to do those too. Running, yeah, I'm going to do that. So I wasn't doing like what you're doing at the time, but I was connecting with you, and I wanted to stay connected with you like I want to stay connected with Alec. Because what I said in the beginning, my life is our life. And so what are my motivations? Number one, yes, to take care of myself, but why? So that I can be here longer for you and for Alec. It's like what you're doing. It's about yourself, but it's also service for mankind, service for others.
So what have you noticed lately about either your physical strength, your affect, your sleep, your mood? I mean, benefits that people can hear you talk about and say, like, you have direct causal relationships because I do these things or I eat these foods and I feel these ways.
Well, certainly, I'm 71, so my metabolic rate is different than yours. my expenditure of energy is different than yours. So I'm in my 70s, right? I'm not a sedentary person. I'm always moving around. Like when I have my pedometer, I can put in 5,000 steps a day, maybe just in the house. And I like to exercise. So I have duration of energy. And I can stay up until 8:30, 9:30 and sleep soundly. I sleep soundly and wake up early and wake up with energy. I love what you say about every day is Christmas. That's how I feel. Yeah, when I wake up, that's how I feel exactly. Extremely happy to be alive, like, wow, another day of life. So for me, I have that type of energy. But mostly, especially for women, we do a lot of things inside the house. So I still move furniture on my own, get it out of my way if I'm cleaning. I still lift and carry a lot of things. You know,
do.
I go up and down the stairs, and I do that with safety. I have learned better, appropriate techniques for when I'm lifting, pulling, picking up, pushing, storing, body mechanics, things like that. My endurance is very good. I saw you wearing a 20-pound vest yesterday. So when you left, I put it on because I wear I wear a 20-pound vest too.
My mother literally hikes with a 20-pound vest a lot at her place in Texas. So when we did the Murph workout yesterday for Memorial Day, she's like, how much is the vest weigh that you're wearing? I was like, it's 20 pounds. Oh, okay, cool. And now you're talking about wearing it around the house.
Well, I put it on. Oh, okay. Hi, I'm familiar with it. Yeah. Mobility is really good. Like you guys can bend. You know, you all do everything without any issues whatsoever.
Well,
I don't see anyone complaining. I mean, I saw you all bending today, picking things up, pulling, pushing. That's normal. We're
Yeah.
so blessed that we have these bodies with this agility, right? Well,
Yep.
for me in my age group, it's becoming less normal.
right.
People with issues with their knees, especially, or their hips.
Right.
Walking.
Getting older, but dying longer. Right? Like reading
Yeah.
about that in our book that we were reading, the recent one, you know, like even though we're getting older as people, as Western culture, like our lifespan, life expectancy is lengthening, the quality of life is diminishing. So yes, we're getting older, but we're just dying longer.
It's like a bad relationship, you know. It dies slowly.
Yeah,
So that's what
exactly.
we do. We die slowly.
So yeah, living to be 80, but like what is it like from 60 to 80?
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why people who are looking forward to living to be 80 don't necessarily want to take care of themselves because they're probably, many people say, what's the point? I'm going to
Right.
die anyway.
How old do you want to live to?
104.
That's it?
Yeah, 104. And my doctor who said I would, die in a year is like all for it. So we talk about it a lot. Yes, I want to be 104. I have great aunts who live to be 102, 103. I'm like, well, why not? They were part of the Mexican Revolution. One of my great aunts actually was the aunt of my grandfather who became a rebel. And, they put their parents through a lot of stress. They
Yeah.
survived. The stress that I'm under all the time now is stress that is extremely, extremely hard on me. But I look back at the stress of my father, who was a crop duster in Mexico, my uncles who were in World War II, who came back normal and they had long, healthy lives. And then I look at my grandparents in Mexico and their parents before them and their parents before them, who were immigrants who sailed all the way from Spain on a ship across the ocean. So what stress do we have?
Can you, I'm glad you brought that up about stress. Like, what if you weren't eating the way you are? What if you weren't living the way you are? How would that stress be handled?
Well, let's see.
Or not be
If I was
handled?
drinking wine and champagne, I would be on the sofa all day. I'd be out of it. If I was eating cookies and cake and donuts and brownies and cheesecake and candy, I wouldn't be able to function because the headache goes from a headache to sheer dysfunction, not being able to think. I would probably not even be here talking with you.
Do you see yourself changing, going back to how you were eating, how you were living?
Well, there's no way I can do that, honey. I can never go back to being 10 years old physically or 20 or 30. So why would I be able to go back to eating, living the way I was? I'm too far gone into health and wellness to pull myself back into sickness and into poverty of mind. So you know what happens with this food?
Poverty of mind, it's a bomb.
What happens with this food is that your mind, at least my mind, opened. It cleared as I, without knowing, by focusing, let's say, on eating good meat and letting go of all these foods. I knew somewhat about chemicals and things like that, just like I mentioned before, generally, from my father's talks with us and my mother.
Yeah.
But now that I'm learning more and more about chemicals, okay, so not knowing, I was eating good food and my body was cleaning itself, layers and layers and layers of trash. So that opened my mind. Why would I want to go back? And you can't go back.
It. You can't unsee it.
Well, no, you can't. You cannot unsee it. Mm-hmm.
That's the truth, and thanks for sharing all that today, Mom.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for asking me.
I know it's an intimate and personal kind of account of things in life. No, but seriously, I like right at the beginning what I was saying about, I think it's more important for people to hear it from you than it is from me. Like, I think it's easier for me to get up and beat my chest and say, oh my God, this is so amazing. Like, come feel what I feel and do what I do. But like to hear it from someone that I respect and admire and that,
wow, thank you.
Bored me. It's like, don't just hear it from me, like hear it from her and take it from the example, because I think you've got a lot more to show for it, because as good as it is to feel good and as attractive as that can be, it's like extended lifespan, quality of life later in life, chasing immortality, that's way more attractive, I think, to where people are way more on the frontier about that. And, I think it's just got a lot more value to add. And like what you're talking about, poverty of mind, that's powerful. That's really powerful. And I'm just proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
I love seeing you grow and pump steel and,
I'm trying.
lift heavy weights and feel good from doing it and read the books you're reading and doing the habits habitually that you do, and to see what you've come from, where you've come from, especially the things you've had to go through over the last 20, 30 years, to see where you are now. I know it's a journey, and I know you've done a lot of hard work to get to where you are, and I just am a fan of the show.
Thank you, and it's worth every struggle, okay? It's worth every sacrifice. It's worth every single moment. The counter argument is, yeah, well, a car can hit you, or, well, yes, but the quality of my life, my personal life, how I feel. If I feel good on a daily basis, and that's all I do, is take it one day at a time. I feel good, you feel good.
Yep, one day at a time. That's the truth. So I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. It's very personal, very intimate, because of myself and my mother. So again, if you don't want to believe me, maybe you'll believe her. So remember, if you like this, subscribe, like the channel, share with your friends, comment by all means. Hopefully you won't say anything bad, because it's my mom. Come on, guys. And remember, if you can't pick it, pull it, or kill it, don't ask me if I eat it.